She was just a student in row 8 until the
Hey,
male
wake up.
captain
We need to
asked,
go.
"Is there any combat pilot
Where
on
are
board?"
we? What's
The sky was
happening?
a pale blue, the clouds floating like gentle cotton above the earth. She felt a small thrill in her chest, not because of the journey itself, but because of the possibilities that each flight held. Flying had been her dream since she was a child. Even now, as a final-year aviation student, every time she boarded a plane, she felt the familiar mixture of excitement and calm that only someone who truly loved flying could understand. Her journey today was not just another flight. It was one of those ordinary trips that seemed ordinary to everyone else, but carried for her a quiet sense of significance. She had completed an intense week at the flight academy, hours spent studying navigation, learning emergency protocols, and practicing maneuvers in the simulator. Maya's life revolved around aviation. Her friends often joked that she could sleep in a cockpit if given the chance. Most people did not understand her fascination, but she did not mind. Passion was rarely easy to explain, and she had long ago accepted that her dreams might feel unusual to others. As she sat, Maya watched the cabin around her. Passengers were settling into their seats, some chatting quietly, others focused on screens or books. A family with a small child had taken seats nearby. The child's laughter was soft but bright, a cheerful counterpoint to the quiet hum of the airplane. Maya smiled faintly, thinking how ordinary this scene was. For most people, flying was routine, something they did without much thought. For her, it was more than routine. It was a reminder of how far she had come, from a little girl staring at airplanes in the sky to a young woman pursuing a life she loved. She thought about her instructors, their voices echoing in her mind. Always stay calm. Every decision counts. Confidence comes from preparation, not luck. Their words had become a part of her. She had spent countless nights going over checklists, memorizing emergency procedures, and imagining herself handling situations that, in reality, she hoped she would never face. Yet she knew that preparation was everything. It was what separated a student from a pilot who could be trusted in a real emergency. Maya adjusted her bag, placing her aviation logbook gently on her lap. She often carried it with her, more as a comfort than a necessity. Inside, the pages were filled with notes, sketches of maneuvers, and reflections on her progress. Each entry was a small victory, a record of challenges faced and lessons learned. Today, as she glanced at a page detailing a simulator exercise, she felt a quiet pride. She had been nervous at first, unsure of her abilities, but she had persisted. The fear had been replaced with a steady confidence, one she had earned through determination and repeated practice. The flight attendants moved through the cabin, their voices polite and professional. "Please make sure your seatbelts are fastened. Prepare for takeoff." Maya clicked her seatbelt into place, listening to the familiar sound of metal locking. She watched the other passengers, noting their varying expressions. Some looked excited, others bored or impatient. She noticed a man in his late 30s reading a newspaper, occasionally glancing at the window, as though searching for something outside. Across the aisle, a young woman with headphones seemed completely absorbed in her music. Maya's eyes returned to the window, where the plane's wing reflected the morning sunlight, shimmering like silver. Her thoughts wandered to the small victories that had brought her here. She remembered the day she had passed her first solo flight. The memory made her smile. She had been nervous, her hands shaking slightly on the controls, but as she guided the plane through the sky, a sense of freedom and exhilaration had washed over her. That day had been proof that she could handle responsibility, that her passion and effort could translate into skill. It had been a turning point, a moment when she realized that her dream was not just a fantasy, but a path she could follow with determination. Maya glanced around the cabin again. Most of the passengers were focused on their own lives, unaware of the dedication and practice that went into making flights safe. She felt a quiet appreciation for the pilots and crew who worked behind the scenes, whose skill and experience made travel routine for everyone else. She knew the feeling of being both nervous and excited before taking control of an aircraft, the awareness that every decision mattered. It was a mix of fear and confidence, a balance she had learned to manage over the years. The engines hummed steadily, a comforting sound that reminded her of countless hours spent in simulators, practicing takeoffs, landings, and emergency procedures. Maya's mind drifted to the future, to the goal she had set for herself, to become a combat pilot. It was a dream that required not only skill but courage, discipline, and resilience. She thought about the challenges she had faced along the way, early mornings, long hours of study, and the moments of self-doubt that had tested her commitment. Each challenge had strengthened her resolve, reminding her that perseverance was essential for anyone who wanted to excel in aviation. A flight attendant passed by, offering water and snacks. Maya politely declined, her mind still focused on the quiet anticipation of the journey. She took out a small notebook from her bag, jotting down a few notes about navigation techniques she wanted to review. It was a habit she had developed to keep her mind sharp, even during ordinary flights. The pages were filled with diagrams, observations, and reminders, all small pieces of her ongoing education as a pilot. As the plane began its ascent, Maya felt the familiar sensation of lift, a gentle pressure that pushed her back into her seat. She closed her eyes for a moment, breathing in slowly, letting the rhythm of the flight calm her mind. For her, every takeoff was a reminder of possibility, a chance to practice patience, focus, and awareness. She reflected on the hours of study that had led to this point, on the mentors who had guided her, and on the determination that had carried her through difficult moments. Each flight was a lesson in itself, teaching her more than any classroom ever could. Passengers around her were adjusting to the movement of the plane, some looking out the window in awe, others reading or working on devices. Maya observed them quietly, aware of the diversity of experiences in the cabin. For most, it was just another flight, but for her, it was an opportunity to reflect, to prepare, and to appreciate the journey she was on, not just in the air, but in life. She understood that the path to achieving one's dreams required patience, focus, and an unwavering commitment to improvement. She thought of her parents, who had always supported her ambitions, even when they did not fully understand the demands of aviation. Their encouragement had given her the confidence to pursue her dreams, to embrace challenges, and to push beyond her comfort zone. Maya felt a quiet gratitude for their belief in her, knowing that her progress was not just her own, but a reflection of the support and guidance she had received. As the plane leveled off at cruising altitude, Maya allowed herself a small smile. The journey ahead seemed ordinary, yet it held the quiet promise of possibility. She remained aware that life was often unpredictable, and that even ordinary moments could hold extraordinary significance. For now, she would watch the clouds, take notes, and observe the world around her, appreciating the calm before any storm that might come. She was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead, even if she did not yet know what they would be. The hum of the engines, the soft chatter of passengers, and the gentle sway of the plane created a rhythm that was both comforting and energizing. Maya felt a sense of peace in the midst of routine, a recognition that she was on the right path. Her dedication, her passion, and her readiness to face challenges were all quietly present, waiting for the moment when they might be called upon. She glanced once more at her logbook, noting a recent entry about emergency procedures and critical decision-making. It felt almost prophetic, a reminder that preparation and awareness were essential. Maya knew that life, like flying, could change in an instant. One moment could require all the knowledge, skill, and courage she had developed over years of training. She felt ready even if she did not yet know what that moment would be. The flight continued smoothly, yet Maya's mind was alert. She observed the subtle movements of the plane, the expressions of passengers, and the efficiency of the flight attendants. Each detail was a reminder that in aviation, awareness and attention to detail mattered. She thought about the future, about the flights she would command, and about the moments when she might be called to act decisively. Every flight, no matter how ordinary, was a step toward becoming the pilot she aspired to be. As the hours passed, Maya remained engaged with the journey, reflecting on her past, observing the present, and imagining the future. She knew that life, much like aviation, required preparation, focus, and courage. Each small moment, each observation, and each experience contributed to the person she was becoming. A person ready to face challenges, to make decisions under pressure, and to act with confidence and skill. For now, she sat quietly in row 8, a student among passengers, yet carrying within her the knowledge, passion, and readiness that set her apart. She was aware of the ordinary appearance of the flight, yet beneath that surface, she held a sense of possibility, a readiness for whatever might come. In the quiet moments before any unexpected challenge, She prepared herself not only for the flight but for the larger journey of life, knowing that ordinary days could become extraordinary with courage, skill, and presence of mind. The flight had been smooth for most of the journey, the hum of the engines a comforting background to the quiet murmur of passengers talking or reading. Maya sat in row 8, still observing quietly, her eyes flicking occasionally to the clouds outside. She was reviewing mental checklists in her head, practicing a habit ingrained by years of training. It was a habit that now, more than ever, might make the difference between calm and chaos. Suddenly, the calm of the flight shifted. The plane jolted unexpectedly, a sharp bump that sent a few passengers gripping their armrests. A low murmur of concern spread through the cabin. Maya's heart rate increased slightly, but she remained calm. Turbulence was common, and she had learned to handle moments like this with steady focus. She tightened her seatbelt and kept her eyes on the plane's interior, noticing small details, the way flight attendants adjusted, the shifting posture of passengers. Minutes later, the captain's voice came over the intercom, but it was not the usual calm tone. It was strained, uneven, and carried a weight that made Maya sit up straighter. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing a serious situation. I'm unable to continue piloting the aircraft. I need assistance." The words hung in the air, strange and alarming. Passengers glanced at one another, confusion and fear spreading like a ripple. The cabin felt suddenly smaller, the ordinary flight now marked by uncertainty. Maya's mind sharpened. She knew instantly that this was not just turbulence or a minor mechanical issue. Something was wrong in the cockpit. She took a deep breath, reminding herself of every emergency protocol she had studied. Her training had prepared her for simulations, for theoretical emergencies, but now the reality was here. She was still a student, yet the words of her instructors rang clearly. Preparation and courage mattered most when fear tried to take over. The co-pilot's voice followed, trembling slightly. "Is there anyone on board with combat flight experience or advanced piloting skills?" The intercom repeated the question twice, each time more urgent than the last. Passengers looked around in confusion. Some laughed nervously, unsure of what to do, while others whispered in fear. Maya's eyes widened slightly. Her training might not be official combat experience, but it had prepared her for handling pressure, quick decision-making, and advanced maneuvers. She hesitated for only a moment before standing. Every instinct told her that this was the moment she had trained for, though she had never imagined it would happen in real life. Moving quickly but carefully, she made her way down the narrow aisle, noticing how tense the cabin had become. Mothers clutched their children, elderly passengers held onto armrests, and some young adults whispered reassurances they did not really feel. Maya kept her focus, moving with quiet confidence, reminding herself that panic could only make the situation worse. When she reached the cockpit door, she paused. Her hands hovered over the handle, a surge of awareness running through her. The cockpit was where the most critical decisions would be made. It was also where she could truly test herself, where the knowledge and skills she had developed over years would be called upon. With a deep breath, she knocked gently. "This is Maya Khan," she said clearly, her voice steady. "I am an aviation student with advanced flight training. I can assist." Inside, the co-pilot looked up, relief and surprise mingled on his face. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice shaking slightly. Maya nodded, quickly assessing the situation. The captain slumped slightly, clearly struggling, and the co-pilot was struggling to maintain control. Every second counted. Maya stepped into the cockpit, her mind racing yet focused. She scanned the instruments, noting the altitude, speed, and heading. She listened to the co-pilot's instructions and immediately began following them. The passengers behind her were quiet now, sensing that something critical was happening. Some were praying, others staring in disbelief at the closed cockpit door. Maya's hands moved over the controls with a mix of caution and confidence, remembering every drill she had practiced. She had imagined situations like this countless times, each one preparing her mind for the impossible. Now she realized imagination was no longer enough, action was required. The turbulence intensified and the plane pitched slightly. Maya kept her focus, adjusting controls, stabilizing the aircraft as best as she could. The co-pilot guided her with calm instructions, and slowly the plane's movements became steadier. Maya's mind worked rapidly, calculating adjustments, predicting shifts, and responding to every new challenge the aircraft presented. Her training in simulations was paying off. Each decision was deliberate, precise, and based on knowledge rather than panic. Time seemed to stretch. The cabin passengers could hear the occasional alerts from the cockpit, the low hum of the engines, and the faint voices of flight attendants trying to maintain calm. Maya could sense the fear behind every murmured word, but she stayed focused on the immediate task. She felt her heart pounding, yet her mind remained clear. She reminded herself that fear was a natural response, but it could not dictate her actions. Every life on this plane depended on steady hands and quick thinking. A critical moment arrived when the plane encountered unexpected wind shear. Maya had read about it and practiced responses, but experiencing it in reality was different. The aircraft jolted sharply and the co-pilot called out corrections. Maya followed quickly, her hands moving with precision over the controls. The plane's nose dipped, then leveled, and for a moment everything felt like suspended tension. She could hear the faint gasps of passengers, but she could not allow herself to react emotionally. The task at hand required full attention. Her thoughts briefly flicked to her instructors and mentors, their lessons guiding every movement. Trust your training. Stay calm. Every decision counts. She repeated these silently to herself, a mental mantra that helped her focus on actions rather than fear. The cockpit was a world of instruments, dials, and switches, all demanding careful attention. Maya navigated through each, checking altitude, speed, and direction, all while listening to the co-pilot and communicating with air traffic control. Meanwhile, the passengers were becoming aware that something extraordinary was happening. Some looked around, noticing the quiet seriousness of the flight attendants. A few had caught glimpses of Maya as she moved to the cockpit and saw the determination in her eyes. The ordinary flight had become a collective experience, a shared moment of anticipation and hope. People who had never spoken to one another now exchanged worried glances, silently trusting that someone capable was taking control. Minutes passed, though it felt like hours. Maya maintained a calm demeanor, following instructions from air traffic control, adjusting the aircraft's trajectory and monitoring all instruments. She felt a sense of clarity that came from deep focus, an awareness of the moment, of the responsibility she carried, and of the necessity of precision. She realized that the skills she had honed through countless hours of study and practice were not abstract. They were vital to saving lives. The plane began to stabilize gradually, and the turbulence subsided slightly. Maya could hear the subtle shifts in passengers' voices, some exhaling in relief, others still holding on to tension. She felt a small sense of accomplishment, though she knew the journey was far from over. Landing a plane safely required more than just controlling it midair. It required careful planning, calm execution, and the ability to respond to sudden challenges. As the co-pilot continued to guide her, Maya prepared for the next steps. She communicated with air traffic control, receiving instructions for an emergency landing at the nearest airport. Her training had included emergency approaches and landings, but now the reality required focus beyond simulation. She adjusted speed, altitude, and flaps, guiding the aircraft with steady hands. Each decision was deliberate, calculated, and executed with precision. Back in the cabin, passengers sensed the tension and the professionalism emanating from the cockpit. Whispers of reassurance and silent prayers filled the air. Some stared out the window at the clouds, finding comfort in their familiarity. Others held hands or embraced loved ones quietly, trusting that the person in the cockpit had the skills to manage the crisis. Maya, aware of their presence behind her, kept her focus entirely on the task, knowing that panic could spread if she wavered. Another critical moment came when the landing gear needed to be deployed. Maya carefully followed protocols, checking all systems, listening to warnings, and coordinating with the co-pilot. She remembered simulations of landing under emergency conditions and applied every lesson learned. The plane's descent was smoothening, though tension remained high. Each adjustment required precise timing and attention to detail. She could feel the gravity of the moment pressing on her, yet it strengthened her determination rather than weakening it. Throughout this time, Maya remained aware of herself as a student, yet capable beyond expectation. Her hands, trained through repetition, moved confidently. Her mind, trained to anticipate, adjusted instinctively. And though fear was present, it was held in check, transformed into focus and action. Every passenger on board, though unaware of her full background, would soon understand the impact of skill combined with courage. As the plane approached its destination, Maya prepared for the final stage of the flight. She reviewed checklists for landing, coordinated with air traffic control, and ensured all systems were ready. The co-pilot remained beside her, providing support and confirming every action. Together, they navigated the final moments of this extraordinary flight, a collaboration built on trust, skill, and urgency. Even as the runway drew closer, Maya's mind remained clear. She understood that landing was not the end, but another critical moment requiring precision and calm. The passengers, still tense, were unaware of how expertly the situation was being handled, but they felt the steadiness of the plane, the confidence in the cockpit, and a growing sense of hope. Maya's quiet determination, her readiness to act, and her focused execution were slowly transforming fear into trust. The plane was now steadily descending, yet the tension in the cockpit remained palpable. Maya kept her eyes on the instruments, her hands lightly gripping the controls, each adjustment precise and deliberate. The hum of the engines was steady, but every flicker of warning light or subtle shift in the plane's movement made her heart race. She had faced challenges in her training, but this was real life, with dozens of people depending on her focus and skill. The co-pilot, though visibly relieved to have her support, continued to monitor the systems, calling out minor adjustments and reminders. Altitude is still slightly high, reduced by 500 feet. Watch the airspeed. Maya responded with calm efficiency, making the necessary corrections. Her mind worked like a well-oiled machine, calculating, anticipating, and executing decisions with both speed and accuracy. Each moment required complete attention, and she was determined not to let even a single detail slip. Back in the cabin, passengers were becoming aware that something extraordinary was happening. Flight attendants moved quietly through the aisles, offering calm words and instructions, their composure helping to stabilize the anxious crowd. Some passengers clutched hands, whispered prayers, or exchanged tense glances. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation, every passenger silently aware that they were not on an ordinary flight. Yet, despite the fear, there was also a growing sense of trust. The confidence and determination in the cockpit radiated outward, reassuring those who had been watching the events unfold. Maya's thoughts were focused entirely on the task at hand. She recalled countless hours in the simulator, facing scenarios designed to test composure, skill, and reaction time. Now, theory and practice were being put to the ultimate test. She reminded herself of the key principles her instructors had emphasized. Stay calm, follow protocols, trust your training, and prioritize the safety of everyone on board. These principles were no longer abstract concepts. They were the tools she needed to guide the plane safely to the ground. Suddenly, the aircraft encountered an unexpected crosswind. The plane tilted slightly, and a warning light flashed on the console. Maya's heart skipped a beat, but she did not panic. She adjusted the controls with careful precision, countering the tilt and stabilizing the plane. "Crosswind detected. Adjusting," she called to the co-pilot, her voice calm but firm. He nodded, assisting by reading off speed, altitude, and heading. Every adjustment required perfect coordination, and Maya felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. As the runway drew closer, Maya's hands moved with increasing confidence. She had reviewed emergency landing procedures many times, but doing it in reality, with the lives of passengers in her hands, added a new level of intensity. The runway lights appeared in the distance, bright against the evening sky, a clear target amidst the clouds. The co-pilot guided her through the approach, noting minor turbulence and advising on slight changes in speed and angle. Maya followed every instruction meticulously, aware that every decision could make the difference between a smooth landing and a disaster. Her mind briefly flashed back to her early training days. She remembered the nervousness she had felt on her first solo flight, the trembling hands, and the racing heartbeat. It had taken months of practice to develop the calm precision that now guided her every movement. Each simulation, each repeated maneuver, had been preparation for this very moment. She realized that her past struggles had not been obstacles, they had been lessons, shaping her into a pilot capable of facing extraordinary circumstances. The cabin behind her was tense but increasingly quiet. Passengers had stopped murmuring, some staring intently out the windows, watching the city lights grow closer. Others closed their eyes, silently placing their trust in the person controlling the aircraft. Flight attendants moved efficiently, checking seatbelts, and ensuring that everyone was prepared for the landing. The energy in the cabin was a mix of fear, hope, and awe, an atmosphere that could easily have become panic if not for the quiet authority radiating from the cockpit. Maya felt a surge of determination. She reminded herself that fear was natural but could not control her actions. Every calculation mattered. She monitored airspeed, altitude, and angle, making precise adjustments to maintain the correct trajectory. She listened carefully to the co-pilot, whose experience complemented her own training. Together, they formed a seamless team, focused entirely on the task of bringing the plane safely to the ground. The plane encountered another pocket of turbulence just as it approached the final approach path. It jolted suddenly, causing a few passengers to gasp and grip their armrests tightly. Maya's hands moved instinctively, correcting the plane's angle, stabilizing it in a smooth arc. She kept her voice steady as she communicated with the co-pilot and air traffic control. "We're experiencing light turbulence, adjusting approach angle. Confirm flaps and landing gear status." Every word, every adjustment, reflected a combination of skill, focus, and calm under pressure. As the runway grew closer, Maya's attention narrowed to the final steps of landing. She could see the runway lights stretching ahead, guiding the aircraft toward its destination. Her hands and feet moved with precision, controlling throttle, flaps, and rudder with coordinated efficiency. The plane's descent was smooth, yet every second demanded vigilance. She monitored speed, angle, and alignment, aware that even the smallest miscalculation could result in disaster. The co-pilot called out the final instructions, guiding Maya through the precise moments before touchdown. "Maintain current descent, flaps full." "Prepare for landing," he said, his voice steady despite the tension. Maya responded immediately, adjusting controls and ensuring that the aircraft remained aligned with the runway. The runway lights grew brighter, clearer, and she could sense the final stage approaching. Every passenger, though unaware of the technical details, felt the intensity of the moment. Maya focused on her breathing, keeping it steady and controlled. She reminded herself of all the training that had prepared her for this exact scenario. Muscle memory guided her hands and feet as she made the final adjustments. She could feel the plane responding perfectly, her inputs precise and deliberate. The runway stretched ahead, a symbol of hope and safety, and she guided the aircraft toward it with unwavering focus. The landing gear made contact with the runway, a soft but reassuring sound that echoed through the cockpit. Maya carefully adjusted throttle and brakes, ensuring a smooth deceleration. The plane glided along the runway, stabilized and under control. Passengers exhaled in relief, some smiling, others whispering prayers of gratitude. Flight attendants moved efficiently, guiding passengers as they absorbed the reality that the plane had landed safely. Maya kept her focus until the aircraft had slowed to a complete stop. She guided it to the designated gate, coordinating with ground control and the co-pilot. As the engines powered down, a quiet sense of accomplishment filled the cockpit. The tension of the flight began to lift, replaced by relief and pride. Maya realized that her preparation, skill, and calm under pressure had made this moment possible. When she finally stepped out of the cockpit, passengers and crew alike looked at her with admiration and gratitude. Their eyes reflected relief, amazement, and respect for the calm, capable young woman who had guided them safely through an extraordinary situation. Maya felt a quiet humility, aware that she had acted not for recognition, but out of a sense of duty and preparation. Yet in that moment, the impact of her actions was undeniable. News of the emergency spread quickly. Airline staff, airport personnel, and eventually the media praised the young student who had demonstrated extraordinary skill and composure. Maya, however, remained grounded, insisting that she had only done what she had been trained to do. Her mind, already moving ahead, considered the lessons learned and the confidence gained. She realized that experiences like these, while unexpected, could shape a person's future in ways nothing else could. In the following hours, as passengers disembarked and thanked the crew, Maya reflected on the extraordinary experience. What had begun as an ordinary flight had transformed into a life-defining event. She thought about her instructors, her training, and the countless hours of preparation that had allowed her to act effectively under pressure. Every challenge she had faced in the past had contributed to this moment of quiet heroism, where skill, focus, and courage converged. Maya also considered the passengers' reactions, their fear, relief, and gratitude. She understood that her calm and competent response had not only stabilized the plane, but had reassured the people on board. Her actions had a ripple effect, turning panic into trust and chaos into order. The realization reinforced her belief in preparation, perseverance, and responsibility. As the plane rested at the gate, Maya took a moment to look around. The ordinary flight had become an extraordinary lesson in human capability and resilience. She felt a quiet pride, not in herself alone, but in the training, mentorship, and dedication that had made her ready for this moment. The experience had confirmed her path, strengthened her confidence, and solidified her determination to pursue her dream of becoming a combat pilot. Even as the adrenaline faded, Maya remained alert, aware that every experience, every challenge was part of the journey toward mastery. She thought about the future, the flights she would command, and the moments when skill and courage would once again intersect with necessity. For now, though, she allowed herself a small, quiet satisfaction. The knowledge that she had faced the unexpected, risen to the occasion, and guided everyone on board to safety. The engines of the plane powered down completely, leaving only the faint hum of auxiliary systems. Running quietly, Maya leaned back slightly in her seat, allowing herself a slow, controlled breath. The tension that had gripped her since the emergency began gradually melted into a mix of relief and reflection. Every passenger on the plane had been watching her actions, many with silent hope, some with prayer, and now the crisis was over. The runway lights had faded behind the aircraft, and the familiar airport sounds of staff coordinating arrivals filled the cabin. Passengers began to unbuckle their seatbelts, some exchanging astonished glances. Children clung briefly to parents, sensing the end of uncertainty, while others whispered words of gratitude among themselves. Flight attendants moved through the aisles, checking that all passengers were safe and calm, their professionalism steadying the atmosphere. One young woman approached Maya quietly, her eyes wide. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know what would have happened without you." Maya gave a small smile, shaking her head modestly. "I was just doing my best," she said softly, her voice calm yet honest. The co-pilot remained seated, checking systems one last time before exiting the cockpit. His earlier tension had eased, replaced by admiration. "You did remarkably well," he said, glancing at Maya. "I honestly didn't expect a student to handle this with such precision and calm." Maya shook her head, still feeling the adrenaline, yet humbled. She had never considered herself extraordinary. She had only relied on preparation, training, and focus. And yet, the acknowledgement filled her with a quiet satisfaction, a recognition of how readiness and courage could translate into real-world impact. As the passengers disembarked, the hum of conversation shifted from nervous murmurs to expressions of gratitude and relief. People paused to approach Maya and the flight crew, thanking them for their calm and skill. Some asked for her name, eager to share the story with others. Maya offered brief smiles, answering politely, but inside, she reflected on the journey she had just completed. The ordinary flight had transformed into a defining moment, one that would remain etched in her memory forever. The airport staff approached, coordinating the final steps for passengers and the aircraft. Maya remained in the cockpit for a few moments, checking instruments one last time and ensuring all procedures were correctly followed. She thought about the responsibility she had carried, the lives depending on her ability to remain composed, and the choices she had made under pressure. Every moment had required precision, every adjustment mattered, and she had succeeded. The weight of that responsibility, once heavy, now carried a sense of pride and accomplishment. Outside the plane, reporters and photographers had begun to gather, alerted by airport personnel. Cameras clicked as people tried to capture the moment, eager to document the young student who had played a key role in saving the flight. Maya remained composed, aware that the attention was a consequence of her actions, not her desire. She understood that what mattered was not recognition, but the fact that her training and focus had made a difference when it was needed most. Maya thought about the passengers on the plane, their fear, their gratitude, and their trust in her abilities. She understood that heroism often came quietly, unnoticed until circumstances demanded it. Today, she had acted not for praise but out of duty. Yet the reactions of those she had helped reminded her that preparedness and courage had tangible effects. Every gesture of thanks, every relieved smile, reflected the impact of remaining calm and focused under pressure. Later, when the media interviews began, Maya answered questions calmly, emphasizing the importance of preparation and training. She spoke about her journey as a student pilot, the lessons learned from her instructors, and the value of remaining focused during emergencies. She avoided exaggeration, presenting the story as it had happened, highlighting the collaborative effort between herself, the co-pilot, and air traffic control. Her words resonated with listeners, many of whom marveled at the composure and skill displayed by someone so young and relatively inexperienced. Maya's mind also reflected on the lessons this experience had imparted. She had always known that aviation demanded precision, discipline, and awareness, but now she had lived it. She had experienced firsthand the intensity of responsibility and the importance of confidence in skill. Every calculation, every adjustment, every careful decision had mattered. The realization reinforced her commitment to her chosen path and strengthened her resolve to continue growing as a pilot. In the hours that followed, Maya received messages from her instructors and mentors, congratulating her on her calm and effective response. They praised her focus, her ability to execute procedures under pressure, and her readiness to act decisively. Maya accepted the praise with humility, knowing that while she had done her best, her training had guided her every step. The experience became a testament to the value of preparation, diligence, and resilience, confirming that the lessons learned over years of study could have a profound impact in real-world situations. Maya also reflected on the passengers' reactions. Many had expressed amazement at how composed she had been, their gratitude palpable. She considered the human element of the experience, the fear, the hope, and the trust placed in her hands. The flight had demonstrated that courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act effectively despite it. In the midst of uncertainty, her training and focus had allowed her to guide the plane safely to the ground, turning a moment of potential chaos into a successful outcome. As the day progressed, the story of the young student who had helped stabilize the flight spread across social media and news outlets. Photos of her smiling modestly, answering questions from reporters, circulated widely. Yet Maya remained grounded, aware that the true measure of her actions lay not in recognition, but in the lives that had been protected and the passengers who had reached their destination safely. She felt a quiet pride, not in herself alone, but in the culmination of years of learning, practice, and dedication. The co-pilot and flight crew were also celebrated, and together they reflected on the extraordinary circumstances they had faced. There was mutual respect, recognition of teamwork, and acknowledgement that the crisis had required every ounce of skill and composure they could muster. Maya felt a deep connection to her co-pilot in that moment, understanding that collaboration, trust, and communication were as critical as technical skill. The experience reinforced her understanding of aviation as a discipline built on both individual expertise and coordinated teamwork. Later, Maya returned home, physically exhausted but mentally alert. She sat quietly, thinking about how ordinary days could suddenly become extraordinary. A routine flight, a seemingly normal moment, had transformed into a defining experience. She realized that life often presented challenges that tested skill, character, and composure. Today, she had been tested and had emerged stronger, more confident, and more determined than ever. Maya's thoughts also turned to her future. She had always aspired to become a combat pilot, a goal requiring focus, courage, and resilience. The events of the flight had reinforced her belief in her chosen path. She understood that challenges, whether expected or unforeseen, were opportunities to demonstrate skill, leadership, and calm under pressure. Each lesson learned today would remain with her, shaping her approach to future obstacles and reinforcing her commitment to excellence. In the days that followed, Maya continued her training with renewed determination. She shared her experience with instructors and classmates, emphasizing the importance of preparation, focus, and composure. She reflected on the ways her own confidence had grown, understanding that true readiness was built over time through practice, study, and the courage to act when necessary. The flight had become a living example of these principles in action. Maya also took time to acknowledge the passengers, crew, and airport staff who had contributed to the safe resolution of the flight. She understood that success was rarely the result of a single individual. Rather, it emerged from coordinated effort, trust, and the willingness of each person to do their part. She felt gratitude for those who had guided, assisted, and supported her, recognizing that even in extraordinary circumstances, collaboration was essential. Reflecting on the incident, Maya realized that ordinary moments often contain the seeds of extraordinary experiences. A routine flight, passengers quietly waiting in their seats, and a student quietly observing her surroundings had all contributed to a moment of significance. She understood that life's unpredictability could reveal hidden potential, calling on skill, courage, and preparation in ways that theory alone could never predict. Maya's story became an inspiration for other students, aspiring pilots and ordinary people alike. She emphasized that training, preparation, and confidence were the keys to handling unexpected challenges. Her experience demonstrated that courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act effectively in the presence of it. She became a quiet role model, showing that readiness, focus, and dedication could transform ordinary individuals into capable and trusted leaders in moments of crisis. As she returned to her studies, Maya carried with her the lessons of the flight, the experience of responsibility, and the knowledge that preparation had been her greatest ally. She approached each new day with renewed focus, aware that opportunities to demonstrate skill and composure might arise at any moment. The ordinary student in row 8 had faced an extraordinary challenge, and she emerged not only with the gratitude of those on board, but with the confidence that she was prepared for whatever lay ahead. Maya's journey did not end with the safe landing. It continued as a series of reflections, growth, and renewed determination. She understood that true accomplishment was not measured by recognition alone, but by the ability to act effectively when it mattered most. The ordinary flight had become a milestone, a testament to the value of preparation, courage, and steady focus. It reinforced her commitment to her dreams, her training, and her determination to excel as a pilot. In the quiet moments that followed, Maya allowed herself to smile. She knew that the experience had changed her, strengthened her, and confirmed her path. The ordinary student who had quietly observed, studied, and prepared had risen to meet an extraordinary challenge. Her story would be remembered, not only for the safe landing but for the calm, skillful, and courageous response that had made it possible. She understood more than ever that ordinary individuals could achieve extraordinary results when skill, preparation, and courage intersected.